Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Breakthrough Innovation. I'm Preston Chandler, and with us today is my co-host, JL Heather, and our guest, Daniel Holguin. I said that right?
That's
Great.
right. Absolutely right. Yes, sir.
Daniel is the Chief Technology Officer at Santa Rosa Rancheria, Tachi-Yokut tribe. He's also a cancer survivor. He's a father of 5. He's a former police officer. Daniel had to really completely reinvent his career when cancer forced him out of law enforcement. And so he shifted over to IT, and he's worked his way through IT from the trenches of tech support up to C-level leadership in 3 different organizations. And today, Daniel's not just a technology leader, he's a people-first innovator. He's passionate about motivating and building winning teams. So in this episode, we're going to dive into 3 different aspects. We're going to dive into some leadership and motivation, career reinvention and resilience, and how to do innovation within IT and government. So if you're interested in those things, that's great. This is the conversation for you, so let's dive in. Daniel, thanks again for being here today. We're thrilled to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
First question, you've had some interesting struggles in your life and a pretty broad range of career experience. I'd love to just hear from you. What were some of those struggles that helped shape who you are today and how you lead?
Of course, obviously, being a police officer was very. It is life changing. I mean, it's not just the training; it's the day to day, and that's when I realized that this is about people and seeing people at their worst in that field. I mean, they don't call you to have tea. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
Yeah.
it was definitely a life changing time for me to be a police officer and to respond to those calls. And then again, having cancer, I was diagnosed with cancer in 98, 97, 98. And that was also, again, was life-changing because it steered me in a direction of, the things I take for granted. I don't remember the electric bill from 1998, but I definitely remember cancer, you know what I mean? So all
Yeah,
the
I can
things
see that having an
we
impact.
worry about on a regular basis weren't really important. And then, changing careers, shifting careers, starting out in IT in tech support. I started working for Dell in Nashville, Tennessee, just answering, the help desk calls and, all that good stuff and building PCs for, configure to order companies, things like that. And really just learning everything I possibly could as the years went by and realizing every day in every way, it was about the people I worked with, the people I worked for, and how to be successful with people. So that for me was the biggest lesson I learned through all of it was, even my doctor, my oncologist, when I had cancer, my parents, all my relationships at work, relationships you don't have anymore. Once the job's over, it was always about people. That's what I learned.
So what have you found to be some of the keys to motivating people and to fostering winners when you're looking at like your teams?
I think the biggest thing is you look at, again, I'm a student of leadership, right? That's kind of some of the things I say is I really love to follow like Simon Sinek and Chris Voss and some of the others that are out there. And yeah, so really good stuff. And so a student of leadership. And so being in that mindset, I realized that I want to reward that incentive or, instead of the effort, you know what I'm saying? And really, we're not always going to cross the finish line. And I know that, there's a lot of talk about the infinite game and the finite game. And so in this case, we're always thinking that we're going to get to the finish line. Well, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. That's why we have the win-loss review, right? And so I think that the key is rewarding the people on your team for the effort that they do. And really, my job, I'm not the star quarterback. I'm the coach or I'm the blocker. You know what I'm saying? That's what I do. I'm not LeBron. I'm the guy you never heard of. So I need to be in the back, running block, making sure that my guys and girls can cross that line when the time is necessary. Whether it's funding or whether it's, vendor roadblocks, whatever that may look like or feel like, or sometimes the people on my team have family emergencies. They've got to go. Really running block and making sure they feel good about being at work, making sure they feel good about what they're doing and helping them stay focused on, like Simon says, in this book, it's, helping them stay focused on the why. Why are they there? Why are they doing what they do? And it's about people. And I think motivating them always comes back to treating them the way you want to be treated.
And to some extent, making sure you never treat people like problems. I think that's where a lot of leaders go wrong, is they get a very simplified view of something that goes wrong, and that problem becomes the person. And that's never healthy for anyone.
It's not. And it does spread, through the team.
Right.
kills morale, kills communication, kills trust. It's just not a good place to be.
Something you said reminded me of a study on school kids. JL, you might have to help me remember this one, but it was something about the rewarding of the effort. They found that when they told the kids they were smart, they actually did worse.
You're talking about Rosenthal.
When
yeah.
They worked hard. Congratulate, like, you did such hard work. I could tell that you were working hard, that was actually more motivating.
Well, you're actually talking more about grit, which is...
That's what it is.
Well, I'm blanking on who that woman is right now. But yeah, basically talking about, because there's two ways to look at it. Your perception of the person, affects how they behave, and it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. The other side of it is the people want to be seen, heard, and valued. And the more you can have that come through in your interactions with them, the more they're going to step up to the challenges in front of them.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And they feel heard. Right, you make sure your team feels heard and seen. Have those one-on-ones. Bring them in and get to know. Don't talk work. I bring them in and we don't talk work. Sometimes we'll have one-on-ones. We're not in the office. We have a one-on-one. We have a huge casino here. We head over there and they talk about everything. They talk about family struggles and they talk about sick relatives and things. So I'm not surprised when someone calls in and says, "Hey, I'm not going to be there today. My aunt, remember we talked about her? She's she's not doing well."
Right.
Hey man, you know what? Life's what happens while we're making plans. So because we had the one-on-ones, I'm aware of what might be happening in this individual's life, and I'm there to support them. So it's very helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So speaking of some of those different organizations, you talked about the casino, but also tribal organizations and government organizations that you've worked with. How does innovation look different in those organizations, and how do you overcome some of the inherent bureaucracy?
Yeah, it's a struggle. I was the CIO for the city of Madera for some time, for city of Madera, California. Of course, having a city council and a tribal council, there are some similarities there. But where we are now, when you cross over into that reservation or Rancheria land, you're leaving the state of California, you're leaving the state of Wisconsin, you're leaving the state wherever that tribe is, you're now on sovereign land, and so there's a lot of federal rules you got to play by. The state kind of goes away. But yeah, there's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of salesmanship. There's a lot of getting in the ring because you gotta fight for that piece of the budget to get your things done. And so it is rough. There's a certain amount of, you gotta have that research. You gotta make sure that your pitch deck is solid so that the tribal council understands, because really IT is about getting the cookies off the top shelf down to where the kids can get it. And a lot of times if you start to get that, you're not explaining it well enough. When you're asking for $1.5 million for cyber security, you've really got to have it to the point where they understand what they're spending this money on, because that's a pretty big ask.
The value proposition has to be crystal.
Yeah, it's got to be really clear to them. And then, there's deliverables. You've got to be able to show them, those that you're hitting those milestones, and that you're bringing it home. And it's consistently showing them deliverables every quarter, consistently over and over again with every project. So they understand. It builds the trust. It builds the trust with the tribe that, hey, this guy just doesn't speak. He says what he means what he says. And I think that's really the key to being in the tribe and working within the tribe, working within the government, setting deadlines and meeting them. It's not always easy. You got vendors, you've got roadblocks. It happens.
I'm hearing kind of between the lines, there's two things that I'm hearing. One is that you have to tell a story. And I like that analogy you used of taking the cookies off the top shelf and putting them down. You have to tell a story in terms that people can understand, and you can't bury them in like IT jargon or pharmaceutical jargon or whatever your company is. You can't just bury them in jargon. And then the other one that I'm hearing come through is the importance of the small wins and iteration, and not expecting that everything good is happening in some big bang in the future. That you have to be able to show those small wins, and we are improving. And yeah, we might not have gotten the full win today, but we're making a small win. We are making progress.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it's about. It's also about, again, communicating with the team. And I think I watched one of JL's, one of the podcasts that he had previously, where he talked about communication, how important it was. And I think there was a study done about how I'm going to tap out, a lullaby and, tell me if, you can hear.
Yeah.
So I tried that with my guys, and, they're all looking at each other. So I think one guy got it out of the 8 guys in the room. One guy got it. So it was shocking to me. And it's, as much as I thought communication was important before, that really opened it up for me, because there's a lot of people in the room still scratching their head, even though they're nodding. Yeah, I got this. Sure, okay. They really don't. So
Well, even if they think they do, they may not.
They may not. That communication is really, really crucial.
One thing JL likes to say is one of the biggest fallacies of communication is that it actually happened. And so believing that because I said it, somebody else is going to understand it.
Because
in that study you're talking about, one of the fun parts about that is not how many songs people guessed right or wrong. It was how mad the people tapping got when they guessed wrong. Because we have this tendency to be like, it should be so easy. Like, how do you not understand what I'm saying? Because you've got the whole narrative.
It's right there.
Yeah. So it's just as much about how you act when you're communicating as how someone listens.
Absolutely.
So I love that study. I talk about it all the time. I actually have tried very hard in the last couple of weeks not to talk about it, just so it doesn't come up in everything.
Well, there it is.
So Dan, I'm interested to know, is there somebody that has really influenced you over your last 25-year career?
Oh, yeah.
And it could be somebody you've worked with or somebody who's just inspired you.
Yeah, absolutely. I took a position with IDEX Corporation, years back, 2015, I believe. And the hiring manager, his name's Del Amico, and he and I are still friends today. Del his management style was absolutely, he's a CISO for a place called Theta Point right now. And his management style, the way he addressed me, the way he spoke to me like I was a colleague. And this guy's, he was the IT director, IT manager. And I'm just an admin, sysadmin. I'm the low guy, and every time he spoke to me like a colleague. He spoke to me as though I had value, and he never crossed the line between friendship and, so on and so forth, and never, really blurred any of those lines. But whenever he spoke to me, what I had to say had value. Hey, we got this problem. This isn't talking to this server's down, and so on and so forth. And his reply back to me is always, well, what would you do? How would you handle this? And it, God, no, I got to figure this out. So I'm always trying to throw it over the fence to him, but he'd always recenter me, refocus me. And when I spoke to him, he really looked me in the eye, made eye contact, and he really came to my side of the table all the time. And man, he just changed my perspective on everything I did. He changed my perspective on talking to users. Yeah. I think Saturday Night Live had this skit where the IT guy would come in and move, and they kind of get the guy out of the seat, hit the keys. You're such a moron, that kind of. Yeah. And so I realized when working with Dell that, everybody deserves that. You're important. Everybody deserves that. And I talk to the janitors. I know them by first name basis, maintenance workers, say hi every morning, that kind of thing. And we talk, and it's because of Dell's the same way. He's never met a stranger, and the guy he just showed me a whole new way and a whole new appreciation for people. And they're not, like you said earlier, they're not a problem. They may be having a problem. They may be having a bad day. They're not a problem, and they're not, they deserve compassion and empathy. They deserve to be heard. Stop talking and listen, actively listen.
Absolutely.
To these folks, and that's Del Amico.
It sounds like Del has just been an amazing mentor for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even today.
As we wrap up, Dan, where can listeners connect with you? Where can they learn more about what you do and potentially collaborate?
Well, as of right now, my website is still under development. It's pretty simple. You can reach out to me at LinkedIn, and then linkedin.com/Daniel Holguin Senior. Sorry, you put that in there. I think there's a couple of us, Daniel Holguin's out there, but you'll see me there at the in that search.
You're the senior, the better one.
First.
Well, Daniel, thank you again for the great conversation today. It was so great to hear your insights and your perspective. And certainly something that JL and I share. I mean, we could nerd out about leadership and motivational theories all day long. So thanks again for being on the show with us. For everybody else who is listening in, we're grateful that you listened to today's episode. As normal, please review and leave a rating wherever you're listening to the podcast, and find something that you can take from what we talked about today and apply it. Similar to what Dan did with the tappers and the listeners experiment, apply it. We love hearing back what you've done with it. Leave some comments. Tell us about how it went. Again, thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time on Breakthrough Innovation.
Take care. Thanks so much.